So last week, 16th demo, how to squash and merge. In last week demo, permission stuff. Okay, Antoine, dropping and dragging. Yeah, okay, yes, Niraj, PR. And then Antoine showed us the PR with SEO stuff. We talked about all the modules that do that and what we should do. Today. Today, demos.
I can make a demo about the new SEO module.
Who else? That's a lot. What did Dean do last week? Let's see, what did he do?
We merged the roles module.
Oh, roles module. The roles module?
Oh, rules.
Rules. But because I'm like, there is a roles thing like permission, roles permissions, but it's not a module. Okay, rules module. It's merged in dev?
Yes.
Okay, I merged dev.
I could probably bring up a topic of not concurrency checking, collections, yes, SQL collections. For a bit of chat.
Sorry, what's the subject? I didn't get it.
Sorry, so of a small PR and to add support for collections to Orchard. So the support's there in SQL, but
we don't support it. So you want to show it?
I probably won't show it, but I think I'll explain it because it's kind of becomes an opt-in feature for OpenID and potentially other modules.
Interesting. Okay, so interesting. There is anything we have to do for that?
Not in SQL, but there's some options registrations.
I see. Okay.
To make it non-breaking.
How to use it? I see. Okay. Status. Where is my app here? To move that. Touch everything. Yeah, I was surprised it was merged because I merged them into that branch and I didn't see that. I didn't see the effect, at least. So dev filter 16. This one, setup context properties comments. One. Okay. Cypress 6.5. Make deployment steps orderable. UI only. I was about to cry, and then I see UI only.
But it has an impact on how the steps are exported.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is fine. It's like you define the order in the UI.
Yes.
Good. I think that's better than having it hard-coded in a step definition. However, if you do mistakes, it's up to you. Like if you delete something after creating something, like
Yeah.
So that's actually not that simple. And that's it, just 3 files change, and that's not possible. You see?
Yeah, so rather than enforcing everything, we just make some suggestions about where they should go.
I mean, that's good. We can't force people from doing bad things. We can just explain how it should work. And we can't make it automatic because it can't be automatic. It's fuzzy between, there is common sense. There are things that can't be this way, and I can format my hard disk, but I won't do that because I know. But maybe someone will find a tutorial about format C:, and try it. No, you should not have tried it. Update order on the post because you have permission. Okay. And return OK. What is OK? It's an API call, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the order is in JavaScript, and we just update it.
Because what I was looking is for the basic pattern, which is, okay, it's a post because it's updating something. So we need to check also authorization, which is done, and then we do a redirect. But it's a web API, so we don't redirect. We just return the status code. So I'm fine with it. Okay, good. There must be some CSS somewhere. No CSS change, no cursor like I can move you.
We've got all the CSS we need for sorting in the admin CSS. So all the classes are there.
Better than everything. Wow. All the classes are there. Good. Display async. I just modified it this morning. Fixes adding widget without layer. Adding widgets without layer breaks site. Prefix. Oh, this is to define their, okay, otherwise it will not show. Okay. Layers, widget layer, not null. Okay. Okay. Fill. I didn't remember that we had to put async suffix when we do that. I saw your comment. And it's I bet I wrote it, but I didn't realize it was necessary. It's kind of weird that it's required. We can support it because it returns a task, so we could detect it instead of just expecting it to be async, because otherwise not run it. It's kind of non-intuitive. Not sure it's good. Add some comments to data migration. Okay. I see. So when you type a migration, you see that. So it might be better than find.
Yeah, I can never remember whether it's async on the end or it's update from async 1 or anything myself. So
aren't you missing here the int? Does it work if you return a value but you don't say the type here?
No, I should be returning an int there. You're right.
Not sure it will compile otherwise. Oh, I heard a thing. Just what there is. Code optimization. Code optimization. Oh yeah, I love it. Thank you, Jasmine. Better. I love this split. Vance Morrison, the creator of Purview, taught me this trick. When you do a split, you can say how many max elements you want. So for instance, if you have 2 separators, instead of having 3 elements, it will just split the first one, not the second one. Super useful when you have, I'm sure I've said that many times, when you have something like foo equals bar, okay? Like you pass arguments, foo equals bar. But it could be bar bars, okay? Like the value will be bar bars. So if you split by that, you will have 3 arguments. And if you take the first 2, you will lose the second part, because what you actually mean is that, okay? So you can't split by equal, because you could split the value inside the second element. But if you do split comma 2, then it will just split 2 max. So the second value will be that. So when you know that you have a separator from key value, always put split equals 2, because this way it will work even if there is the split char inside the value. So that's why I asked to put 2. Thank you. Add DocumentId index to dashboard widgets. Okay. Index. Dashboard widget. Okay. So I was thinking about something. I saw some code. I commented on it. Order by. There was an order on the datetime UTC of an index. Okay. And that's common. We order the things by percent at the top. So in the indexes, they all have an ID property. And the rule is that the ID is just incremental. So the new values will always be no, that's wrong. Okay, so we can't do that. So I was suggesting let's order by ID, because there is an index on that. It's a primary key. So it's much faster than ordering by datetime UTC, even more if you don't have an index on that. But actually it's wrong, because what we can do, so be careful if I say that and you change it, or if you did that. So we can't order by ID, because maybe the latest index created is from an old value. So if the datetime UTC doesn't represent the date when it was indexed, but the content item ID, for instance, creation date, can't use the ID, because we might create an index element for an old value. So we can't do that. I should remember next time. Ask people to do that. That's not good in this case. That's good for when we want to update all the items from the index, to know what has been updated in the index, but not to order the content items from this. It would be faster. That's bad. Okay. Media storage to IAsyncEnumerable, which requires a new NuGet package to have some helpers to list IAsyncEnumerables. And common usage. So instead of returning an enumerable of something in a task, we do IAsyncEnumerable, and we can do then, can't we do, so this one is not a good example, because I maybe it's the thing in the, no. So IAsyncEnumerable. Yeah, that's, I need to explain that. Sure, that's the issue. Yeah, that's the issue. Okay. So how is that working? I'm confused. Action, oh, it's not, sorry, I didn't see action result. Okay. An action result of a load. A load here is IAsyncEnumerable, because it's where await, which is an extension method from the system link libraries. System link async. That's not an example I would like to see, actually. So here another example. Path. This one, get directory source content. I think where is this method? Media file store. It should be there. IAsyncEnumerable. IAsyncEnumerable to AsyncEnumerable results.
Probably the blob file store is the one to look at because it actually has support for async, which is why I did it.
Okay, directory. Yeah, that's what I wanted to see. Okay. IAsyncEnumerable, we can do a yield return inside an async call, and that will work now. Before you had to go through an intermediate list and return the list at the end. So now we can do yield return also. And the IAsyncEnumerable also works in for each. So we can do a for each.
Yeah, so there's a for each just above that where we're for eaching the results and transforming them. Just compress that down just a go back down just a little bit. Yeah, there we go.
Yes, await for each. Okay. So instead of doing what? Awaiting. What will have we done before? Yeah, await the page.
So what happened before is, yeah, we used to get them down in pages, which is how blob storage supports AsyncEnumerable is you get pages of listings, and before we would have just transformed them without into a list.
Okay, cool. So maybe I will get a PR for SQL. At least to return IAsyncEnumerable, maybe not to reference system link async to get all the new things, but which is weird that we need to reference.
I think you can already get an IAsyncEnumerable out of your SQL. It's just not
real.
you
can?
Yeah, I think so.
And maybe I knew that not for that I changed some code for EF, the benchmarks. Oh yeah, boom, boom. Two async. So there is list async and there is two AsyncEnumerable. And apparently I put a to-do to say that when Dapper supports it, we should also put it from Dapper. Two AsyncEnumerable. I assume I followed the convention from some other. So we can already call it. Interesting. Ooh. Fix Docker Linux push. What was the issue? Oh yeah, sure. Let's echo the password. Oh no, sorry. Sure. It's piped directly to the login. That's how it works. Oh, but it was so when was it removed? It was working. It was like this before.
Yeah, it's used like this for the Windows one, but for Linux there is another step to get to pass password.
Yeah, so I'm confused because I remember there was something special, so I used the special thing and I removed that. It doesn't work anymore?
I don't know. I was checking with the latest that was working, and was a login succeeded. And when it started to not work anymore, it disappeared. This login succeeded.
Okay, so maybe this. What is the step here?
Just you can see 61, 66. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did that because I found it and So maybe this action doesn't work anymore, or needs to be updated.
But I don't know. It's trying to push to the latest, and it says that the latest tag doesn't exist.
That's weird. It should be unrelated. It's just authentication here. So
yeah, but I just reverted it in the next commit.
So it's unfixed. So this was not the issue?
No, it was not working.
It's still not working. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's why I say it's not related to the issue. So it's not related to the issue. It's still not working. The issue is with the latest tag. Okay. Okay, need to understand. Okay. Demo video for custom user settings. Okay. Video. D'abord. Added error checking for decrypting Facebook and Twitter settings. This confused me. Try catch. Okay. Okay, good. Logger. Okay, so it's logging the issue. So add error checking for decrypting Facebook and Twitter settings. That's weird.
So the issue that the people had is that all the options classes already do all this logging and don't start if they have a decryption error. What happens if you delete your option keys or your data protection keys,
Okay.
or move it to another server or something? But the problem was that in the UI, it would actually break the entire UI because it would just throw an exception in these drivers. So
yes, and don't return any UI, so it will be empty, so you don't see what's happening.
Yeah, and everyone was super confused. I've seen it happen before as well.
Yeah. So now there is logging in the log file and in the UI, saying we could not render anything. So I see. It's good. Good job. It's like somebody was bothered by a behavior and decided, let me fix it and share it. Introduce resource. Wow, what is that? Is it encryption inside the code? Okay. Resource position. Resource position. I think we saw that PR and I said it was fine, so I would trust it. Yeah, we saw that during the triage, that you can force where you want the dependency to be in the list. Even, yeah, like imagine you have multiple resources to add in, like multiple scripts or multiple CSS to add in the footer, and they don't have any dependency. It's just, okay, we need this one, this one, this one, and this one. But maybe you want one of them to be at the end because it has to happen at the end. Then you can say, I want it to be at the end. But by default, it's following the dependency graph or you can force it to be at the end. Interesting. Resource dictionary, which is now another dictionary and also has a stack. It can only be fast. Yeah, that's necessary. That's fine. Okay. Thank you, Akil. We have 3 Greek contributors, Michael, Janice, and Sotiris. Maybe more that I don't know about, but at least we have 3. That makes me remember whenever I think about Greece. When was it? 2004 or 5? There was this European Championship, and Greece was qualified. We don't know how they were qualified to the European Championship of soccer, football. And they went in final, or semi-final, yeah, against France. And they beat France. I mean, like 1-0 against all odds. I'm like, we are supposed to win, and Greece beat us. Oh my God. Remove some leftover commented code. Okay. CodeMirror 551 rules module, not the roles module, the rules module. Okay. The one that replaces the chint default rules with custom ones and beautiful. Okay. With the or ends, the things beautiful. Thank you, Dean. That's a lot of work, actually. It's kind of straightforward now because it's the same pattern, but still a lot of files and making it extensible and all. Good job. Rules. Fixed status code for API scheme. Status code. What did you break? Status code pages feature. What is that feature?
So, because we use status code pages, which is the error handling pages from the diagnostics module, which uses some ASP.NET middleware.
Okay.
When you go to a page and you're not authorized, you get a not authorized page back. But when you're using an API controller, you don't want a not authorized page back. You want a 400 message of some description.
So you say, no, shut up.
Yep, that's exactly what I say. And it's weak. And there's actually a attribute that you can apply for this called the status code pages attribute. But Kevin told me there's a bug in ASP.NET calling it where it doesn't run at the right time, so it's useless.
Okay. So I think
so
I
I
saw
do it
the
here,
issue.
and yeah.
Good. So there was, someone complained, right, that it was returning a page instead of status code or something like that.
That is actually another issue which I need to talk to you about triage, because not resolved by this PR, and based on some of your design originally.
Okay. I can hear my wife shouting in the feedback. Can you hear her? No? Just me?
She's stopped now.
But you could. I'm just asking, can you or can't you?
We could.
Thank you. I just want to know because I have the feedback from the microphone in my ears, but I'm not sure if this is exactly what you hear. So it's funny. I should watch the video just to see what you hear. I can hear them. Okay. MK. Wow, 7-0. Wow. What's new? That's a big one.
Not that much.
So what's the point of making? Oh, it's just breaking change and.
Yeah, maybe one day there will be a dark mode, but now it's in the insiders version.
Yeah, I was looking at documentation sites, like what they do in Rust, in Go, and what I realized that it's funny that all the documentation sites now, they have the same template / pattern, same behavior, which is title, search bar, sections at the top. When you're in a section, you have the index here, okay, for the section. And when you are in a page, you have the page section on the right. Everything is the same. So that's funny. Yeah. So not saying it's good or bad. Just notice that there is a consensus on how documentation should be displayed. Provide admin user ID and other properties to recipe. Environment providers. Recipe environment provider. What have you done, Dean?
Oh, it's very complicated. The problem we were fixing was that people are using recipe migrations, like the recipe migrator, to do content items, because they can. But when you run them from setup, or when you run a setup on a site and you're using a recipe migrator, it doesn't have any of the properties for the owner ID, for the admin user ID. So I had to find a way that we could provide those because it was causing pain for people. And it's a little complicated, and it relies on HTTP context features to get them in there, because it just didn't seem any other way to do it. So
Recipe environment super user provider. So you have to implement these things to provide these properties to the recipes.
yeah, because during setup, like we create the site first, and then we have event handlers which go along afterwards and create the user and create the site settings.
Yeah, so the migrations, yeah, they don't know that it's in the setup, so they just migrate. So they are completely disconnected from the setup. Interesting. Recipe environment feature. So where do you use that?
So we use that one during setup to actually put it into the HTTP context.
As a feature, as an HTTP context feature.
As a feature, yeah.
Okay.
Because we don't know when we're in a recipe migrator whether setup's running or not running. It might be that you've already run setup and then you've added some migrations. So yeah,
that's good. You master features now, because that's like we do for previews also. Are we in a preview? So let's check if there is a preview feature. Are we in a recipe? So let's check if there is a recipe feature. It's kind of useful. And fix. Well, Antoine keeps adding things while we are. Okay. Fix auth logs and setup and get settings in steps from Lombiq. It's a mix of things here. Okay, load settings, I think. But there are lots of refactoring. I should from Jerry. Load settings. So there is load and get now.
Yeah, I think probably because load should be used to when you're actually going to update them, and get should just be used.
Yeah, I see. Mutable, immutable thing. In this case, they're the same, but in some cases they don't. Okay. That's why Jean-Thierry. Okay, and then abstractions typo. Okay, abstractions. Good. Demos. Back with SEO, Antoine.
Can you hear me?
And see your screen.
Okay. So we were talking about deployment plan and the UI to sort the features. So it looks like this. You can use this handle to move it and put it where you want. So about SEO, we talked about it last week, and in the meantime, been offered that we integrate the module made by his company, Buzz Interactive, into the source code. And I made the module last week during the triage.
How much did we have to pay for that? You paid for it, right, Antoine? That's what.
So, features. There is a new SEO features. If you enable it, you are able to use an SEO meta part. For example, on the content type article, I can add an SEO meta part. And then when I edit an article, there is a specific SEO tab.
Are there any options in the meta part?
Not yet. No.
Okay.
But we will talk about it after, because Seth made a few suggestions to improve it, to take some features from the module, the PR he tried to make a few months ago. But right now there is no settings, and there are those collapsible panels.
Can you show what it contains?
Yeah. So there is the main one about the content. So you will find a way to override the page title, to provide a description, some keywords, a new canonical URL, and specify the robots meta.
I have so many questions. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
If I set a canonical URL, does it replace the auto route one, or it's just a metadata? No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just setting the canonical URL for the page so that the crawlers know what is the actual URL for this content item.
Yeah.
And does it handle redirections like?
Not this module. No. And you can also add your custom meta tags to edit it in JSON, or to specify it. It's easier to specify which content. I don't have any meta in mind, but if you want to add a specific metadata, most of the time you will have the name and the content. Yeah.
So meta keywords, okay. Meta keywords, comma separated. Comma separated because this is what the meta keywords accepts. So there is no transformations on the value. It's just taking that and putting it in the HTML.
Mm-hmm.
Meta descriptor. Why is it a code descriptor or whatever monofont for meta description? That's weird.
Because it can be a bit longer than keywords if you want to add more than, for example, this.
It's multi-line, but
Yeah.
while it's still weird to have this kind of editor, we can support multi-line for text areas.
It's a CodeMirror. It's a CodeMirror text area.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's special.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not. Okay.
So that was
does it support liquid as well? Is it tied? Or
not yet. I don't think so.
Well, should it support liquid or should it support shortcodes?
I guess.
If you're still using my implementation, Antoine, it probably supports liquid everywhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Should it support liquid or should it support shortcodes?
Probably shortcodes because it's about editors.
Yep. And unless you can't break, unless it's sanitized, but it's yeah, that should be shortcodes. It's too risky otherwise.
So about the social panel, you are able to.
But why would you inject shortcodes in these things? Maybe you want just the content item data, and then shortcodes won't provide that. So maybe it should not accept liquid unless it's in the part settings. Like you could say the meta description will take the field, whatever. Yeah, we have to think about it. That's, yeah, that or we need to sanitize it. And then there is no issue. Okay,
even
sorry.
if you sanitize it, you can still inject other stuff in there, which would then move to the layout. Like you still use the liquid zone helper.
Okay.
Anyway.
So you are able in the social panel to define which image you want to use. So for example, for the Open Graph specification or for the Twitter image. So Open Graph it's what it's used mostly by Facebook. You can define which type of content you are editing, you are displaying, what title will appear, and which description. And about Twitter, it's almost the same. You are able to specify the title, the description, which kind of card will be displayed.
Why aren't the images in the sections for their thing, like the Open Graph image in the Open Graph section, the Twitter image in the Twitter section?
Yeah, I don't know why they are separate.
I assume they could then. It will answer.
I will show you how it looks like in the source. And lastly, you are able to define a Google schema. So this is using the JSON plus LD, JSON for linked data specification. So you can define this kind of data and schema in your page.
So it's injected in the page?
Yeah, I will show you.
Never saw that.
So for example, this article, if I display the source of the page, you can see the description keywords, the custom meta, the Open Graph Parameters. The image. So you have the Open Graph image here. So yeah, I guess if it's not defined, it will use the default image as the OG image. Okay, so by default, it's using the culture to define the OJ:local property. You can see the second image. So we just defined the default one, but it's used in OG or in Twitter. The canonical URL by default is using the authoroute URL. And here you can see the Google schema. So with this kind of type, and it's just rendered as is. And the title is not overridden because I did not save. If I save and publish, you can see the title overridden, and you can see that it's interpreting the liquid. SAS is the name of my website. So when I used edit SEO, when I used curly braces site name, it's been rendering SAS, the name of the site.
But it won't anymore very soon.
And so Seth made a few suggestions about keywords, because it's not really used anymore in SEO by websites, by crawlers, robots. About description, you would like a text area instead of the input.
And about keywords, I don't agree, because yeah, maybe crawlers don't care, but if customers care, if users care, then they will want the keywords. They will be like, yeah, I don't care if you don't care. I want
better it. Add more things that less.
Or maybe in the settings you can say if you want to see them or not.
Yeah.
What are they?
So Twitter card could be a drop down. Okay. Yeah, you don't, if you don't use Twitter tags and use you should better use Open Graph. If you use one of them, use Open Graph. And by default, Twitter will use those meta properties. So in SPR, Seth was trying to add some counters to tell you don't have to make description too long, for example. So it was becoming red if it was above a certain length, a max length. And he said that there was some kind of the same custom meta that he could add, and in SPR you were able to define them in the part settings. So that's what he would like to have as a feature, to be able to define the meta tags, some of the meta tags in the part editor.
It's great. Thank you, Antoine. We won't thank Dean because he didn't say anything.
No, I know nothing.
Yeah, the good comments from Seth also just agrees. Yeah, I think we need settings in the part to define what to show. And so I would suggest to have the liquid support in the setting, in the part settings, because that's where it should be. Like if you want the meta descriptions to have something, then you can say, okay, put that in liquid or hard-coded in the settings that can be reused. And we also need settings because I assume some of these values might be the same for all the articles or for all the whatever blog posts. So we need to have part settings, including these custom meta tags, including everything. No? Yeah.
And,
did you include the custom settings, Antoine?
Excuse me, what?
Did you include the custom settings where you could set defaults for the images?
No, not yet.
Okay.
So there are some custom settings.
Yeah, and Dean told me that maybe instead of one big SEO part, maybe we could split it, and for example, each one of the panel would be coming from a part. Maybe
if there are settings where you can say I don't want to see that or I want to see that,
yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it will be, yeah.
Unless like I don't know, the only reason will be that we decide to not support or not make any progress on Twitter anymore because Twitter is dead. And then we don't want to see it anymore, even in the settings. That might be why we want to see it apart. I'm like,
yeah.
It doesn't hurt to have different parts, but it might be hard. If you imagine that if you care about Twitter SEO, maybe you also care about Google and all the rest. So you would have to add 4 parts every time. So I don't know, but is it common to just have Twitter or just Google and not Google, Twitter, Facebook, OG? I don't know.
The reason it was originally done like that is just because it's to provide everything, because an SEO guy that's working on a website never complains that he has too many settings. He always complains that he doesn't have enough.
Yeah. And I said, if there is a setting to hide it, so that's, yeah, so let's keep it all together instead of splitting, because it will be much work for configuring otherwise. And in the next version, when Twitter is dead, we can decide to move it. Or Google, maybe Google will die. Okay, and maybe more will appear. But then at some point, we can just add new parts for the newcomers before we decide to integrate them by default. Okay, looks good. Thank you. Some comments to take into account, so little work, but that's good. Great. What else? Oh, we had another thing. What did we have? We had another thing. Topics, collections. Oh yeah, Dean wanted to talk about collections. The talk to us.
Sure. Let me share my screen just for a sec. So I put together a small PR to add collections support. Collections is a feature of SQL which allows you to store documents in a different table to the normal document table. We don't have any support for it in Orchard Core anywhere. So I put together a small PR just with an idea for adding support for OpenID tokens. Tokens are one of those things that get generated a lot, so they take up a lot of records in the database, and for me they become quite noisy in my document table. I don't have it just makes the table hard to deal with, to be honest. So rather than making a migration to say we're going to put all the tokens always in a different table, which is just complicated and prone to failure, I've just made some options classes which allow modules to, so in the OpenID module, we register tokens as having support for collections. which is just a lookup. It's it's going to add a little bit of a performance hit, but it shouldn't be a major. And then when you want to actually use this feature, so adding support for collections does nothing. Everything will just turn up in the same document table. But when you actually have decided that you want to put stuff into a specific collection, you register this in your own startup, and you say what the table name is, and you either rename all your existing tables or you start your site from fresh with and so the migrations run and will create the migrations over here. So for example, this is the tokens document, and this is the index that's related to it. So the idea was to add something that was kind of opt-in, so that people that needed collection support could choose to opt in on it at a feature level, and then we can slowly consider adding this support to other things. You know, some people might like content items to be supported by collections, for example. I'd quite like to see users in a different table. I think it's just very useful to be able to move them. So that was the topic.
So I think any type that is unbounded should be in its own table, including users, content items, tokens. Maybe I'm missing some others, but at least these three, they should be in their own table. And I don't think it's good to let users decide because they don't know. So they won't. They will just realize like when they hit the issue, and it will like too late. Too much work to change. So I'd rather decide for the users. I have the options for their own stuff. For the core things, we should decide if it should be in a different collection. Making it optional, I think it's hard and it won't help them.
Potentially quite a big migration to actually try and move stuff to new collections. I put the list together here.
That's why I'm saying it's hard to move it to make it optional, because when they decide to change, it's too late. It's hard, too hard. They won't do it.
Maybe they won't, but it's actually something that's quite easy for them to do and quite hard for us to do.
So if we decide to change today, for instance, because today we have, if I say user, content item, and tokens.
So to change tokens, we need to look at, well, we need to do this. We need to initialize the new collection table, which is this one, the tokens document. That one's reasonably easy to do. We have to recreate all the indexes that are related to them. In this case, there's only one.
Why?
Because the indexes need to move to a new table too.
And no, are you sure? Oh, because the name has changed also, because it's a prefix. Okay. Can we just rename the table? Can we rename the table? SQLite doesn't support that.
SQLite doesn't support it.
Okay, so when you say recreate the table, it's just copy the table.
Well, it's not even probably the copy of the table, because we have to pull the tokens out of the old document table, store them in the new table, delete
same
them.
ID.
Well, yeah, but who's going to write the SQL to do that?
Okay, so you say it's easier to just recreate the documents and index them, because it will be created automatically. So it's actually not hard if you think about it. If you say that the process is about reading every document from this type, then cloning it and saving it in the new collection, the index will be recreated automatically.
Yeah, so it's not undoable, but it's another migration, and it's maybe a much bigger migration than the user migration.
It is.
But it's we need to find some way to support this that's non-breaking and doesn't involve writing complicated prone to fail SQL that will break people's sites.
Yeah, I think it should be all C# based by just reading and writing the documents one by one. Just a question of batching and long process. Okay. And but you see what I mean? Like everything you said is hard. If it has to be dynamic, it's even harder. So that's why I'm saying it's. I don't see it working if we make it. I mean, I don't see it working. It will work, but useful if we make it like, oh, after a year you can decide to change. If it's not decided at the beginning, it will be hard to change.
Yeah, I mean, if we were doing this now, it would be significantly easier to.
And I'm also talking about the way you made the services.with collection OpenID tokens. You have to say it when you start the site, on your startup, before the setup. That's why I'm saying just decide it for them and don't make it configurable.
Okay, so that's another option. Would we actually take it out to all the models? Like, you know, with the OpenID token being one table, with the OpenID application being another, there's 4 of them, I think, in the OpenID module, for example.
Well, things like, so it's about the cardinality, how many items we think we can have. Like OpenID token, I'm sure they can be big. So yeah, they have that table. The OpenID application, I need to check. We need to check with scaling. Like, is it something that we can have tens of them or millions of them?
If it, probably more like tens. Authorizations was the other one that Kevin suggested.
Yeah, so if they are like not in millions, then I would say leave them in the document table.
That's probably how I would think too, yeah.
So yeah, and that, and also how often they are read, like document table for everything by default. But if we think that it can be in millions, we need custom partitioning, we need custom indexes and maybe storage. Then we need to put them in a custom table. So tokens, users, you could have millions of users, you could have millions of content items. These are things that users ask and face issues with. So
yeah, absolutely. Content items might be a tricky one because, well, not a tricky one, but because a lot of people make SQL queries outside of our code. If we actually move them specifically to another table, then all those queries will break unless we have, well, actually, no, they just will break.
And source code queries and dynamic queries, like table-based ones.
And dynamic queries, yeah, table-based ones. Yeah, both are impacted by that. So I wouldn't be looking to move content items like right now. I think if we do something, we should just start slowly.
Okay, and that's fine. We could say it's a different, bigger release that will do that, because as long as this is the only million items bound in the document table, that's okay. If we move the other ones in custom ones, because I don't expect people to do lots of dynamic and static queries on users. Same things for tokens, so that's less risky.
Yeah, I see those as probably less risky, and probably less risky to. Better to do a migration for OpenID stuff for those documents, and then do a migration for users a month later, in the hope that people have updated their site so that they're not doing 2 large migrations in one startup as such.
Okay. 2 steps. Okay. And if anyone thinks about anything, any content, any document type that could be huge, also we need to include it.
Yeah, we need to do this for. I started this partly because there's Gabor here. to make sure we had some kind of support in it, so that Audit Trail could potentially support collections as well, because that felt like something that should really be in its own table.
Okay, that's great. Who said something?
Yeah, it's me. Yeah, it could be a great feature for the Audit Trail module too.
You asked for it, I think. Well, I think the Audit module asked for it first. And it can be done today. Like, I mean, that's Audit Trail should do it now. We should not have to migrate it later. It should use collections now. It's very easy. Can't be simpler, right? To use collections. So
to use it is incredibly simple.
Use them.
You know,
migrating is harder. So don't wait for migration. Use them now. It's just one string to pass in the method call.
Yeah, session, delete, collection name.
Save, and also to create a table. When you create a table, you say this collection. So
yeah, same here. Collection name. Okay, so if we lay down the pattern that will make the decisions on what stuff might be big and what stuff should go in different tables, then cool, go away forward.
Thanks for the effort. It's nice, but I think it's not necessary. I mean, this.
No, that's cool. I just
then direction.
Needed to get something started.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
No trouble.
I appreciate all your work, Dean. You're the best. Where is my share button? I don't have anything to share. I will just share to over. So that's it, I think. This was merged. We talked about collections, SEO demo. We'll talk about perf next week. I worked on perf. And all good then. Any questions?
Yeah, maybe one. What should we do with GraphQL? Sorry. This is the question that I've been asking myself all the weekend. Should we keep what we have right now, or just very new version of GraphQL, or
don't like it? What should be a new version? There is one thing we talked about, was to use Hot Chocolate instead of GraphQL.net, because there were features in Hot Chocolate that are not in GraphQL.net. I haven't checked the projects yet. That could be part of the discussion. So you think there should be a new implementation with new features or different designs?
Yeah, this is the way that we use it right now. Everything is directly on the GraphQL endpoint. I mean, all the content types and all the queries are there, and it's not been think.
So let's talk about it next week then. Let's add it to the topic.
And I've not looked at the Hot Chocolate. You mean the?
Yeah.
This is why I'm just saying that maybe we should think about something, because it's pretty basic right now what we have.
Basic, I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it works fine, but there's some issues here and there.
Issues. Yeah, so please list the issues. What solutions you think could solve the issues, and let's talk about it Tuesday when we have more time.
Yeah, it's just about the versioning. I mean, how do we version?
That's one issue.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. All the things you think are an issue and how we could solve it, and how other software solve it.
All right. Looks good.
And we can also talk about it offline if you want to look at the issue before the meeting. So we have some suggestions, conclusions already. And
yeah, I will try to check Hot Chocolate. And I remember that you showed this a while ago, though, so I need to look. And I know that there's also a JSON API branch that Nick made, and maybe this is quite different. I'm not sure if it's going to break what he did there and what we do with it. And yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks.
Anyone else? All good. So see you Thursday for triage or next week for the meeting. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers, bye.